Look, it's a loon. I don't just mean myself. Well, that was a little up close and personal. Hey everybody, it's Bunny, and today I decided we should have a change of scenery. I was gonna take you guys somewhere breathtakingly beautiful. In my mind, this is where I brought you. Breathtakingly beautiful. Breathtaking. Over here we've got a pile of rocks. I don't really know what that is. Well, no, I don't know what it is. I was gonna clarify and say, no, I'm just being silly. It's a blank, but I honestly don't know what it is. I used to come down here and hang out a lot, and I'm just now realizing how kind of creepy and terrifying that is, because it's a parking lot. I can't believe I would like park here all night. Not all night, but like at night, very late at night. I don't know how I feel about wearing a beanie, honestly. I feel like Joe Pesci. Birds, 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 birds are flying in the sky. What are you doing? What are you thinking, little birds? I feel like sometimes when you're wearing tight hats, it just like squeezes my brain function to a bare minimum. I really shouldn't be wasting time with idle chatter, because today is gonna be a video that I've talked about making for a very long time. We're gonna talk about my top, I almost said top 10. I couldn't whittle it down to top 10, honestly. And even beyond my top favorites, I still have an honorable mention section, because I feel like I just genuinely love so many movies. So I think we're gonna start from honorable mention and work our way up. I'm gonna try and type like little codes in the screen for the ratings, like what's family friendly and not, because we've got Swamp Family members of all ages. Gotta like focus and concentrate. You guys, yesterday was such a very strange day that my mind is just kind of like, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean when you kind of have like a weird day and then you're just over it for a while, but you can't really be over it because the beat goes on and you have stuff that you have to get done? What happens if I do this? Like what happens then? Is that a good hairstyle? Let's get into it. I feel like I am trying to decide how to do this because I don't want to give away too much of the plot. Probably should have watched to see how other people make favorite movie vlogs. I didn't really think this out. You know me, I'm just here doing my own thing. Let's just blitz through some honorable mentions. I'm not gonna nod too much at any of them, but they're good. You might want to check them out. We have a couple of horror greats on here. 2 Stephen King movies. Christine, which is probably one of my all-time favorite creepy Stephen King stories. That's the one about the possessed car. It's great. I love the main actor in that film. I don't know what else he was ever in, but standout job. Also, The Shining, of course. I feel like that goes without explaining. I'm a huge Jack Nicholson fan, and it's one of his most iconic movies in my mind. Great if you love spooky stuff. Also, Alfred Hitchcock. We have The Birds on here. I cannot tell you guys, there was one year of my life where I watched The Birds to fall to sleep every single night. I mean, it's a great movie to watch and to sleep to. That maybe makes no sense. I can't sleep without a TV on, so what movie I fall to sleep to is like a big priority in my mind. The Goonies, I feel like that's just like, you can't go wrong with like the classic Steven Spielberg kid adventure. I'm sure most of you guys have seen that movie. It's a real feel-good movie. Oddly enough, 2001 Space Odyssey is way down here in honorable mention. The first 20 times I watched that movie, I could not stay awake through it. But then once you stay awake through it, it's just, you start to get the point. There's a lot of things to discuss in that film. It's amazing. It's also amazing to sleep to. It's very relaxing. There are several montages in the film where it's just a lot of classical music and floating through space. It's very gorgeous, but also if you're not like really with the brain on full function, you might fall asleep. Shadow of a Vampire, really surprised there's not more John Malkovich on this list. He's one of my absolute favorite actors. Shadow of the Vampire is about the filming of Nosferatu. I don't remember how much like naughty stuff there is in that movie. The right amount of creepy. It's very artistic. I remember the first time I saw that movie in the theater, I was in high school and it just blew me away. It was definitely like right up there with some of my favorite movies, but now there's been so many more favorites. I don't know, it got shuffled to the bottom. Speaking of vampires, Shadow of a Vampire. Now we're going to talk about actual vampires. I'm pretty sure I've talked to you guys about this movie before. Dogman and I discovered it about 3 or 4 years ago. It's actually a foreign language film that is a faux documentary, mockumentary, that's what I'm looking for, about the lives of vampires. The characters, once again, just these actors, it's so believable, it's funny, it's dark. If you like vampires, you're gonna love it. And then I guess my last honorable mention is definitely one of my favorite portrayals of Alexandre Dumas, even though it is kind of cheesy, is Man in the Iron Mask. And that's mostly because I feel like that's my favorite casting there has ever been of the Three Musketeers and D'Artagnan. I love Gabriel Byrne as D'Artagnan. I love Gabriel Byrne all the way around. It's a good one. It's a little cheesy. It's a little cheesy. It's still when Leonardo DiCaprio was only considered like a Hollywood heartthrob and nobody thought that he had any acting range pretty much whatsoever. So it is like a little... it's a little cheese whiz.
I feel like I had one other one that came up in my mind, but here we go, right on down the line.
I feel like the first chunk, like the first 6 movies that we're gonna talk about, are a little bit silly. Yeah, then they start cranking up to the more like serious Criterion kind of like films. So right at the bottom is this number like 13. I don't know how many I have written down here. Number 13. Number 14 has got to be Secret Window. I can't even tell you guys the number of times I have watched that movie. If you love films about psychotic literary characters, this is gonna be right up your alley. It's not too spooky. I love Stephen King. There are so many Stephen King related things on this list now that I'm seeing, and that was from a bunch of mini stories that he wrote. I think the book was called 4 Past Midnight, but obviously reading the story is great. The movie is great. So we're gonna like start from like, I guess you could say like least favorite of favorites to most favorite of favorites. So that's kind of the way we're gonna talk about number 1 last, if that makes any sense. So up next is Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I love Paul Reubens. I feel like I've talked about this several times. Like, I feel like just so much inspiration there with the character of Pee-wee. And I feel like Pee-wee's Big Adventure, out of all of the Pee-wee movies, is just the most hilarious and also like visually entrancing. There's just so many colorful characters, so many like crazy sets. It's a Tim Burton movie, so that will probably tell you a lot about that. But once again, it's just a movie that I appreciated so much as a kid growing up, but that I still have appreciation for as an adult. And it's funny, it's silly, it's goofy. Up next has got to be Breakfast Club, and I'm sure that you guys have probably seen this before. I'm sure some of these movies are just like, so you've seen them, you know what I'm talking about, maybe you love them as well. I'm trying to think of what the director's name is. It's gonna drive me insane. John, I don't know why I'm wanting to say Hughes, I'm sure that's not right, but same director that directed The Breakfast Club, did most of the Brat Pack movies, Pretty in Pink, I think he did Weird Science. I'm trying to remember what the other ones with Molly Ringwald are. But all of those kind of like teenage, coming of age, 80s movies, they're all good. Breakfast Club is the one that stands out the most for me. I remember the first time I watched that movie, I was in high school. It blew my mind. I thought it was like the most prolific. If you're kind of at that age, like coming of age teenager, I think that's the best time to watch that movie. I feel like it'll really stick with you. It's a lot about like cliques and just dealing with like pressures of high school, and just all of the characters I find are really well written. It's just a movie that once again I feel like I appreciated when I was younger, and I still appreciate it as an adult. I just kind of think that that's a movie that everyone should watch. It never gets old to me. The next one is another super obvious one, but has got to be on the list. Back to the Future. I do like all three of them, but I feel like 1 and 3 are probably my favorites. I'm trying to remember if 3 is the Western one. I like the first one, obviously. I don't know. I like them all, but I can't remember. I feel like the second one is where they go to like 2017, or was it like 2015 or something like that? Like some year that just happened is like the year that number 2 is set in. They're all good. I love Michael J. Fox, and I love, oh my God, Christopher Lloyd. I'm sure most of you guys have heard of that. If by some chance you haven't seen it yet, you simply must. I feel like it's one of those movies where, once again, it's like totally family friendly. It's a little bit silly. I mean, they do have a definite trope, which they go through in each movie. It's almost like you're watching the same movie 3 times, but yet it's good. All 3 versions, or maybe I'm just easily amused. 2 kind of like sillier ones left. The next one has got to be Beetlejuice. I feel for 9/10 of my life that was my favorite movie. Once again, Michael Keaton. I want to high five you. That's not a high five. That was sort of like a diagonal punch in the face. Are we gonna have a Tom Hanks? Yes, the Tom Hanks conversation is next, but I'm kind of like sad sometimes because I feel like Michael Keaton in my mind is a little bit like Tom Hanks. Like, I loved them back when they were making goofy movies in like the mid to late 80s, early 90s, where they were just kind of like these silly character actors, and I think Michael Keaton is one of the greatest like character actors. Just all of the ways, like sometimes when I watch movies, like I get caught up on how the actor or the character like speaks and just their body motions, and I feel like that's one of the reasons why I loved Beetlejuice so much as a kid, besides the fact that I just totally have always loved like super creepy stuff. We just had a Beetlejuice conversation not long ago, but I feel like just how he like speaks and moves, it's a good one. I feel like there's not much explanation that probably needs to happen for Beetlejuice. It's once again like a Tim Burton movie. I feel like I just grew up being obsessed with Tim Burton and 9/10 of everything that he did. So if you like spooky stuff, if you like funny stuff, if by some chance you are on this world and you haven't seen Beetlejuice, you guys have to comment down below. I feel like when we get to the second half, there might be some movies that you guys haven't seen, but I bet this last half is all movies that every one of you guys have seen. You have to comment down below and let me know if you haven't seen one of those movies. The next one I feel like is kind of obscure, but is definitely my favorite Tom Hanks movie of all time. It's The Burbs. I know that I've talked about it in certain videos before. I love Tom Hanks when he did all of the silly movies. Joe versus the Volcano is great. Big is great. I feel like if they ever remake that movie, I feel like they're gonna remake it, and I feel like when they do, it's gonna break my heart. Burbs will always be my favorite Tom Hanks movie of all time. Once again, it's just a movie I can put on repeat over and over again. So it is a kind of semi-dark comedy about living in the burbs, and they get these super creepy neighbors who move in on their little cul-de-sac in the burbs, and it's like all of these guy neighbors who pal around, like get together, and they start investigating their neighbors, and you don't know what they're gonna find, but it's hilarious the whole way through. It's got young punk grunge looking Corey Feldman in it. It even has Carrie Fisher in it. It's just hilarious. It's good, it's funny, it's intriguing. You're gonna love it. It sometimes comes on Netflix and disappears. That's the only thing I'm kind of sad about this list, is I feel like it's all things that have been on Netflix but maybe currently are not on Netflix. I'm gonna try and link you to all of them down below, like on Amazon or whatever, because probably some of these movies are like bargain bin movies at this point. Moving along, to the top of the list, the Meteor films. And I keep thinking I'm saying like Meteor films. Also, somebody just pulled up in here and they are having like a clubbing experience. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it's like boom, 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 boom. Up next is another Stephen King, but this is like something I like to call surprisingly Stephen King, where it's like you wouldn't know innately that it's Stephen King because it's not like, I don't know, there are some creepy parts. It's Stand By Me. This one might be currently on Netflix. It's like a darker Goonies. 4 boys and there is a classmate missing. And I don't know. There is a little violence in here. I don't know, it's more of like an accident than violence. The first time I saw it, it did startle me. I don't know how to warn you guys about this without giving away the plot of the movie. Anyway, it's these 4 boys. They all kind of have like extenuating family circumstances, like their home lives are not that great. And there is a classmate that has gone missing who has been in an accident, and they go on a quest to find him. But once again, it's like a very coming of age story. It's set in the 1950s. It's extremely well written because it's Stephen King. So it's just all of the characters have such personality, such depth. You will get to see River Phoenix. And I just think that he was so amazing in this role. He's definitely one of the lead character boys. And this car is just like slow driving behind me. Not only is it distracting, it's creepy. I feel like that's one of the movies where it makes me the most sad that we lost River Phoenix so young, because I feel like just even in this performance when he was a kid, I feel like it's like such good acting. It's so sad that he passed away far too soon. Very creepy. I'm wearing a Viper Room shirt today to like talk about River Phoenix. Moving on down the line. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, which I feel like should be higher up on this list because definitely until the top 2 movies I have listed came into my life, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas was my favorite movie of all time. It's about Hunter S. Thompson, so that might make it. I kind of always wonder what people think about this movie if they don't know who Hunter S. Thompson is. I feel like it's the same way with Rum Diary, which came out a couple years ago, and then there's the extremely obscure Where the Buffalo Roam, which actually starred Bill Murray, is the same role that Johnny Depp ends up playing, which is Hunter S. Thompson, Raoul Duke. I love all of those movies because I'm just a big Hunter S. Thompson nutbag. It's once again a very dark comedy, but it's basically about the writer. It's about the adventures of the writer Hunter S. Thompson. There's a book by the same name. The book is amazing as well. He just travels to Las Vegas and he's writing a piece for the Rolling Stone, and he gets into all of these debacles and misadventures, and there is like quite a bit of drug and alcohol use in that movie, so definitely not the most family friendly that you can think of, but it's very funny to me. And once again, I've like really been obsessed with Hunter S. Thompson for a long time, so I feel like maybe that's why this film is so high on my list. Up next is one of my favorite movies of all time. I got into this movie because it's probably my dad's favorite movie of all time. It's Chinatown, and I think that this was up for an Oscar in 1971 or 72, and in my opinion, it's Jack Nicholson's best movie that he's ever been in, and that's kind of a hard thing to pick because he has been in a lot of amazing movies. I'm not really even into detective movies, which is what this is. He's playing a private investigator. There's so many plot twists in this movie that I don't want to reveal it. I don't want to reveal things to you guys about it because I feel like if you haven't watched it yet, the first time you watch this movie, mind blown. There are some dark, abusive family circumstances in this film. So once again, like I'm trying to be good, and like anything that I'm like telling you guys that's rated R or whatever, like I highly recommend. If things like that upset you, like you should definitely like Google and do your research and see if you can find like a synopsis of the film before you watch it, because I am not trying to upset anybody. You think he's investigating one thing for one reason, and then it twists, and then it twists, and then it twists. And the first time I watched that movie, I just remember like mind blown, because I had no idea that the movie was gonna end where it did. But if you like detective movies, mysteries, it's just filmed amazingly. It's a brilliant movie. I feel like anything that's like an Oscar nominated movie, usually you can't go wrong. It's not up there for no reason. Up next is The Godfather, which is maybe extremely violent. I don't know. I feel like I have like a really warped sense of what is and what isn't violent, because I feel like you see a lot of these movies from the 70s, from the 60s, and at their time, they were considered extremely violent. But do you guys like see the stuff that comes on TV these days? Dogman, I think it's Daredevil that he watches, and I'm pretty sure that comes on like NBC or ABC, or like just a normal, you know, televised program, like not HBO or anything. And like that show is so violent, it makes me cringe. I feel like sometimes, like, yes, The Godfather does have violence, there is blood, but it's somehow not as disturbing to me as most of the programs that I see today. Technically, my favorite way to watch The Godfather is in chronological order, and it drives me insane that there is not a way to purchase The Godfather chronologically. I don't know why. Every now and again, a couple times a year, there's normally like some movie channel or whatever where they will show The Godfather chronologically. I think they do it like every Father's Day or something. You can actually watch the story unfold in the order of the family members, which if you haven't seen the movie, then that statement probably makes no sense. But it's a story of like, you know, like fathers and sons. Obviously, it's like a mafia movie, but I'm most interested in the beginning story, which is the story of Don Vito, which if you watch it in chronological order, you get to see all of the sections of his story unfold from beginning to end. You get to follow him, you know, as a child until, you know, he's an adult. But when you watch it non-chronological, you see a lot, they try and like do like a mirrored situation between Michael, which is the son, and Don Vito, which is the father, and they show like the actions of the father and then the actions of the son. And so it's kind of like filmed in more like what I refer to as like soap opera style, where you see current, and then you see past, and then you see current, and you see past. I find that kind of uninviting. If I would have watched it in non-chronological order, I would feel like that would maybe be a little bit harder to keep all of the characters straight. So I don't know. I highly recommend you watch it in chronological order if you can find it somewhere online or tune in somewhere on the TV. Non-chronological is good too, but it's not as good, in my opinion, which is maybe like, I don't know, is that Frown Town? Up to my top 3 movies. So number 3 has got to be The Heathers. I am impassioned about The Heathers. It's got Winona Ryder, it's got Christian Slater. What happened to Christian Slater? Where are you, Christian Slater? Maybe I've just missed it. Maybe he's out there doing a lot of stuff and I've just missed it. It is an extremely dark high school story. Probably quite a bit of violence. Is this considered, I don't know. If you've seen it down below, tell me if you consider The Heathers a violent movie. There certainly is violence, but it's not graphic violence, I guess, is the difference in my mind. Winona Ryder, she's in this clique at school. Her name is Veronica Sawyer, and all of a sudden this new guy comes into town. He's like the dangerous Dark Knight kind of guy, dark allure, dark attraction, and then they end up doing a bunch of dark things. I think that there is like a musical now of the Heathers. I've never seen it. I don't know how closely it follows the original plot of the Heathers, but I feel like the Heathers is like kind of slowly becoming a much more mainstream thing. Number 1 and 2, which are really almost tied. It's very hard for me these days to separate which one of these is my favorite movie. So we'll just say both of these are number 1. Number 2, number 1, 2-1, has got to be Dead Man. That, I literally, the first time I saw that movie, it was like I probably watched it 100 times in a row. I feel like it's maybe like such an obscure film. I feel like when I say like, oh, Dead Man is one of my favorite movies, no one knows what I'm talking about. I feel like it is going to be a movie that you guys would either love or hate, because kind of like 2001 Space Odyssey, there's a lot of downtime in this movie. A lot of it is strictly just visuals, which I find very fascinating. So it's all shot in black and white, and Jim Jarmusch is, am I saying that name right, is the director. But it's like the most artsy fartsy kind of Western movie that you will ever see. It's like shot with an extremely artistic eye. It has a lot of the same elements that you would expect to find in a normal like Lonesome Dove type of Western. It's just the characters too. The characters are so fascinating. And Iggy Pop does make a little cameo somewhere in the movie, so look out for that. It has so many great actors in it. One of the greatest, I think, is Crispin Glover. He's in the beginning of the film, and his monologue is just like, you have to watch it like 15 times. Like, this is a movie that I've literally seen 100 times, and when I watch it on the 101th time, I will find something new, something interesting, something that I like about it. The other big reason why I love this movie is because I am obsessed with romantic literature, and I don't mean romance novels. Lord Byron, William Blake, Percy Shelley. I ended up basically studying my entire length of college education simply focused on romantic literature. But I do feel like that is one of the greatest appeals about this movie to me as well, is that it does focus so much on the literature of William Blake. Oh my god, the battery is dying right at number 1. What are we gonna do? Basically, this guy comes to town and he thinks he has a job. He travels all this way to basically the middle of nowhere, back in the old Western days, like the end of the line on the train. He gets there, there's no job, and then it's like all the things that happens to him after that point. It's a saga. You've got to watch it if you love Westerns. It's very artistically shot. Moving along to number 1, which hopefully the battery won't die, and many of you guys probably already know what I'm gonna say. My favorite movie, probably still my favorite movie of all time, even more than Dead Man, is Clockwork Orange. Dun dun dun. I even have my little janky Clockwork Orange tattoo. I feel like it's a movie I will always be obsessed with. There is extreme violence in this movie. When it first released, I think it was released as rated X, which is worse than rated R. Obviously, X these days means very different things than it did back in the day, but in 1971, when it was released, X was the rating that meant worse than R. I'm thinking about it now, and now I'm just kind of like, would it even still technically be rated R? I don't know. It was banned for a very long time. Clockwork Orange is also a book by Anthony Burgess. If you've not read the book, you might want to read the book. I do like the movie more than the book. Stanley Kubrick did make some changes to the book in the movie, and I like where he took it better. His changes involve the ending of the movie, so I don't want to tell you guys what he changed, because then I will be ruining the movie for you guys. I think a lot of people are just blinded kind of by the violence of this film, and I can understand why some people would be so bothered by it that they couldn't get past it to see like the other themes of the movie. Maybe then read the book, because I feel like the book is not as bad as the movie. I can see why these themes are obviously disturbing to people, why you can't roll with it. I understand. Once again, obviously it's Stanley Kubrick, so you're just gonna get 10 out of 10 cinematography. Malcolm McDowell is just once again like one of the greatest actors, just in like his rate of speech and just like facial, it's like it brings a brand new, I mean, the main character is a villain, and he's kind of one of those villains that you either love or hate. This is definitely a film and a book where I feel like they try and endear you and make you sympathetic towards the villain, and I feel like Malcolm McDowell just does that incredibly brilliantly. He portrays the character as someone that you do end up, I don't know, for all of their wickedness and for all of their villainy, you end up kind of loving the main character, even though he does despicable, despisable acts. For me, it's about the changelessness of the character and the interest of self-preservation. Obviously, he is a character that you don't want to be like, but I feel like I kind of take this plot into such a weird way, and once again, I'm trying to not give too much of the plots away, but it's just like no matter what happens to this character, no matter what happens to him in his life, and no matter what people around him do to him, he remains himself. And oh, I don't want to say, maybe don't watch, I don't know, don't watch this before you watch the movie, but he's somebody that a lot of terrible things happen to him, and he's still able to return to the person that he is. Now, granted, it is a wicked, villainous character, but there's something that I find admirable and interesting, that no matter what happens to a person in their life. Battery died. I think this is the first time I've ever filmed anything on the iPhone in like years. But basically, I just really appreciate how it's so clearly shown that a character who can go through so much that should be permanently mind-altering, permanently transforming, and that character can return, I'm giving it away, return to be the person that they were born as. Does that make any sense? I don't know. For some reason, it's oddly inspiring to me. And I feel like a lot of times I take stories and I make my own meaning out of them, which is not the supposed meaning at all. But in my mind, that is kind of when something is like a work of art, you know? Like, I feel like truthfully, art should create different meanings for everybody. I like it better like when I know less about a piece of art, a piece of music, a piece of, you know, cinema, because then it's kind of like I'm able to take my own thoughts, feelings, and experiences and kind of like discover what it means for me. I am not sure if I did this video how I should have done it at all. Like I say, I feel like it's very, I don't know, I feel like that's why I've put off making this video for a very long time, is because I would love to just kind of like spill the beans completely and talk more in depth about some of these movies, but at the same time, I feel like then, like I feel like talking too much about Clockwork Orange, you know, like I feel like I'm kind of giving away the plot, which if by chance you guys have never seen these movies, I hate to take that experience away from you guys, because this is something that Dogman and I say all the time, but like sometimes we wish we could like have our favorite movies and TV shows and like forget it all together so that we could rewatch it again for the first time and have like all of those fresh experiences again of like watching something and discovering it and loving it, and like just kind of being crazy about it. And also the same thing I was just describing, like I do feel like some of these movies are very artistic, and I feel like it's better if I just leave it up to you guys' own interpretation. So you guys are gonna have to let me know down below, how many of these movies have you seen? How many of these do you think you're gonna see? Please, nobody get upset, especially about like the last 7 movies or so that I mentioned. A lot of them do contain violence and disturbing things, and I'm not trying to disturb you guys, obviously. So just if things like that do upset you, which obviously like some of these themes are innately disturbing. Like I'm not saying that like I don't find them disturbing in theory, but I'm not somebody who really gets like, I don't know, but then things like that Daredevil, it's kind of tricky territory. I don't know. Some things I guess do bother me, and then some things I'm just like, it's just a movie. It's just a show, you know, I don't know. Let me know if you guys would like for me to do this again with TV shows. I feel like I could also do one about documentaries. I feel like one of my favorite documentaries, if you just want a last little bonus Jonas, is Cowsills, A Family Story. It's all about the band the Cowsills in the 60s. It will blow your mind. The first time I watched that movie, it was another movie that I just watched 17 times in a row. I will put links to everything in the description down below. I don't know how to link stuff on iTunes, so I'll make just like a little chart to say like it's on iTunes, or like here's a link to it on Amazon if you want a hard copy or whatever. I would say that probably all, if not most of these movies are on Amazon, so there's that. And I'll check out and see which, if any, are on Netflix. But let me know if you guys would be interested in TV shows, documentaries, anything else, because I feel like I do, and I have watched a lot of stuff. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today for such a long time. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoy some of these recommendations. Let me know if I did this video right or not, because maybe some of you guys were just looking for me to talk about more of like the personal meaning that I derive from each film, which I feel like I didn't really do for reasons that we've already stated, so I won't state it again. But let me know. I hope I did it right. I hope you guys enjoy it. And thank you guys so much for hanging out today and for watching. If you're not already and you'd like to be, hit that button down below, subscribe, become a member of the Swamp Family, and give an alligator its wings. Also, if you want, you can like me on Facebook, facebook.com/graveyardgirl, or you can follow me on Twitter, Tumblr, or Instagram at graveyardgirl, same way it's spelled here. Also, I feel like I've probably been looking far off in the distance for the entirety of this video, and do you want to know why? Okay, because just birds. Can you guys see? I don't know if I can zoom. Can I zoom while I'm filming? Nope. I don't even know if you guys can see, but there's just like a flock of seagulls behind me, okay? I don't mean the band.